Welcome back to Flexbone 101. I am Coach Alex Carrick, and today we're going to talk about passing out of over. This is a request I got recently, and by recently I mean a few weeks ago. I've had the presentation set up and just haven't had time to record the audio for it and edit it. But here we go, because it's a topic that I think it's not talked about as much as it should be, but passing out of over really adds another level to your offense, especially when you're facing a team that is going out of an 8-man box, because the over formation itself puts the defense in a bad situation. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to review the basics of over for those of you that's a new concept. We're going to go over some plays to the over. Then we're going to go over plays away from the over. So like all things in our if-then play calling mindset, if things are going to the over and the team starts cheating on defense to stop those plays, we then have constraint plays to the backside. And for today, we're just talking about passes. But to make sure that we can always call a good play where the defense isn't going to be. So our over basics. We have our base formation, or some people will call this flex. The basis of over is all we're doing is taking one of the X's and putting them on the same side. So what this does is against an 8-man box, it forces the defense to decide how they're going to play that other receiver. Now, the thing about over is that makes the inside receiver ineligible. And a lot of teams don't realize that, at least at first. So the defense can only play this a few ways. So if we just focus on a play side, outside linebacker, and a cornerback, they can either bring the cornerback over to match the receiver, or they can apex this linebacker out. Sometimes he's directly over the inside receiver. Sometimes he apexes in between. And this is an imperfect diagram. Imagine that the two receivers are split out a little bit, that the linebacker can kind of apex between the tackle and the inside receiver. So depending on what they do, we're going to decide on how we're going to call our plays. So as far as what we can call to the over. Now, I mentioned the inside receiver is still on the line, so he is ineligible to catch a forward pass. However, that doesn't mean he can't catch a backwards pass. So this does insert a small element of danger, as obviously a backwards pass, if it's not caught, becomes a fumble. However, it is one more thing that the defense has to keep their eye on in order to respect the inside receiver. So the best thing that I like to do with this is to just call basic pass routes, right? Whatever route combinations, whatever passes and play action you already have in your playbook, run the same exact plays, but just add either the step back from the inside receiver or a bubble to the inside receiver. And it just adds an extra element. So here we have our smash concept, right? Hitch corner. We can run this with a post-post. We can run this with a hitch seam, especially if the linebacker is apexed. We can run my favorite post wheel. And all this is going to do is it's going to put the corner, and it's going to put either the corner that's over or the apexed linebacker one more thing to pay attention to, right? So if the linebacker here is paying attention to this bubble, it might make your wheel route wide open. Now, this is a new concept. So this isn't a basic concept you already have in. This is just a simple now. The outside receiver is going to take a step forward just to get that cornerback to bail a little bit and then turn around for the ball. And the the inside receiver is going to just go block the cornerback. This is great if that cornerback is about 7 to 8 yards back and if the linebacker is apexed. Because before the linebacker can make the play, we've got a 2-on-1 on the cornerback, and you hope that your outside receiver can make a guy miss, play in traffic, and maybe steal a few quick yards, especially on a second and short, where the defense might be expecting something deeper. This is also a call that you can make if you notice that cornerback is starting to drift maybe 8 yards back, 9 yards back, 10 yards back, and you're like, all right, we're just going to steal a quick now and see if we can fall forward for a few yards and potentially turn into a bigger play. In the past, it is something that we have just had a hot audible for. If the quarterback reads it, he can make a quick call to that outside receiver, and only the two receivers really need to know that it's going on. Everyone else can block like a run play because ideally it's going to wind up being caught at or behind the line of scrimmage. Lastly, well, maybe not lastly, but we just have a quick play action flare. If you're like our offense, you may not throw a lot of passes to your A-backs after you play action to them. So whether you make this a triple fake, whether you make this a rocket fake, you can do that and then have the quarterback's eyes drift around and throw out to the A-back that you faked to. And what we can do with this is actually arc block the A-back so that we have a numbers advantage to this side. This is especially good if they apex the linebacker, as I have drawn up, versus when they have the cornerback brought over. Because if the cornerback's over, it's going to match numbers. If the linebacker's apex, that means we have an extra blocker at this point of attack, which makes this a great play. Especially if you've been hitting some other inside plays and maybe haven't been able to get outside as much as you should have, this is a good way to do that. And of course, it wouldn't be a fun video on overpassing if we didn't throw in some sort of trick play, which I think are generally people's favorites. So not only can that inside receiver run backwards to catch a pass, but assuming it's a backwards pass, we can then make this a double pass where we can throw to the inside receiver and then the inside receiver can throw to hopefully a wide open outside receiver. Obviously, this is something you can get set up. Maybe if you run a backwards pass or two or you're running it after you've run a few other pass plays and you notice maybe they're not guarding that inside receiver as much, this is a great way that you can steal a few yards, maybe get a big play on a little bit of trickeration. So one last thing when it comes to throwing out of over to the play side, one thing to notice is how the defense is playing their free safety. If you're running out of over, if they're not going to match the corner, maybe you're running a lot of triple, you might be running a lot of mid triple, a lot of rocket, things to get to the outside. And you may notice that that free safety is either playing force really hard, or he might even be cheating over to the motion and then playing the alley hard. If that's the case, running a play action and a quick A seam, you need to time it up to make sure obviously he's not in the way. But if that free safety is playing run, being able to just run the A-back up the seam for a quick pass is a great way to get a big play. And also, once you hit that once, they're less likely to keep cheating the free safety over like that. So it's a great way to keep defenses honest. Now we need to talk about throwing away from the over. So this probably isn't something you would do too much. You know me, I don't love throwing the ball unnecessarily if I don't have to. I would rather just run it. However, these are some things you can have in your back pocket in case you need them. If you run a basic B screen off a rocket, I think I've done this in a video in the past, being able to just run that B screen off a rocket away from the over is going to be a great thing to do. Again, something else to do if that free safety is cheating over to the over or biting on play action. Now, another bit of trickeration away from the over, what we haven't talked about is that this tackle is technically the last man on the line of scrimmage and still eligible. So assuming that your tackle, whatever your state regulations are, so assuming your tackle has an eligible number and or you can declare him eligible and or you can sub someone with an eligible number in, a great thing to do is run any sort of play action, right? Call it triple action, midline action, rocket action, and literally just run the tackle pop, right? So ideally he might look like he's getting caught in the wash. It might look like a quick veer block, but essentially after a quick mesh or a rocket fake, just throwing to that tackle, and chances are there's gonna be no one there. This is especially good if the defense is gonna match the corner to the inside receiver, because that means there's no one but a free safety and an outside backer on that side that could potentially make the tackle. So as a quick recap, we want to force the defense to adjust, right? Whether they bring the corner over to match the receiver or whether they apex a linebacker, you want to make sure your calls are taking advantage of whatever they choose. Also, if they're switching up how they're playing it, having an audible or two ready to get you into a good play call is a good idea. Typically, you want to call plays away from the cornerback. So if they are apexing a linebacker, it's a good idea to throw to the over. But if they're going to match the over with the cornerback, it's a good idea to both throw and run away from it. And that's our quick video on throwing out of over. As part of the request, I've also been looking into some different passing concepts that we can run out of over green and over brown. And that's what I'll be doing in the next video. So be on the lookout for that soon.